Hey guys, I'm Kevin with Victory 4x4. In this video, we're going to be installing a roof rack on our 2023 Toyota Sequoia. Now before you can get our rack installed on your vehicle, you are going to have a little bit of disassembly to do here on the factory side of things. If yours is equipped with these factory roof rails, you're going to have to start by removing these plastic covers. They just have a couple small clips here on the bottom, so you'll start with a plastic pry tool. You can get that in underneath, and then the clips are out toward each end, so you can kind of feed it out there, pull out, and you should be able to get that to pop free. These covers and the removal of them will be the same at all 4 of these locations, and then if you are not equipped with these factory cross rails here, you'll just have a smaller plastic cover in these locations that need to be removed in a similar fashion. With those covers out of the way, you can grab a T40 Torx and you'll be removing 1 bolt from the top of each location. You'll pull the bolt and the 2 washers along with it. And then I went ahead and did this on the other side earlier on, so you can then simply lift this whole assembly out and set it off to the side. Then you'll follow the same process here on this back rail. And then same thing, you'll lift this one out and set it off to the side. With those out of the way, take a quick look in each of those mounting locations and remove the factory rubber washer that was in place underneath if it didn't come off with the rail. Then we can grab a 10mm socket and move on to the remaining hex bolts that you'll see in these mounting locations. You'll also need something like this 90-degree pick I have here, in which case you'll have to reach kind of in underneath this plastic trim panel and essentially just hold the nut, keep it from spinning, and that will allow you to remove the bolt. That bolt removed, you'll now need to get under there either with your pick or even a small magnet and get the nut out from under this mounting surface. I've had pretty good luck so far, just kind of feeding the pick down in there. You can get the nut to flip on its side, and then simply pull these out, and that's what you're looking for there. Once you've done that at all 4 mount locations, we can move on to the new rack. Now, as you can see, we've already assembled the main roof rack structure here. For the most in-depth look at how to get yours done, you'll want to check out the installation document on the product page where you would have ordered your rack. Generally speaking, it's going to consist of 9 of these aluminum crossbars, the 2 main side rails, front and rear fairings. It's all going to assemble using the same 1/4-20 button head hardware. Just bolts and washers into the side of these, and then on your front and rear fairings, you're going to have bolts, washers, and nuts for the inside. Then on those front and rear fairings, you're also going to be installing edge trim anywhere basically that it comes into contact with paint once the rack is installed on the roof of the vehicle. Lastly, you'll see that we also left 3 crossbars removed from the rack at this time. Those are going to be the ones above these side mounting hole locations. That's where your mounts for the rack are going to bolt in place, and this is going to allow you easier access to the hardware when you're getting this installed up on the roof of the vehicle. Once you have your rack built out to this point, you're ready to move into the mounts and getting a few of them installed here on the rack. So we'll show you that now. You're going to have a total of 6 of these mounts. There's going to be 2 fronts, 2 middles, 2 rears. Those are going to be easily identifiable based on the last digit in the part number. So F for front, M for middle, and R for rear. And then they're all going to contain a forward facing arrow to indicate where the front of the mount is, and obviously that's going to correlate with the front of the rack or the front of the vehicle. Now these mounts are going to be side specific, so you'll want to pay close attention as you're getting these installed. The front mounts, for example, are going to have a slightly narrower face. If you're looking at it in this orientation, that narrower face is going to go toward the front of the vehicle. And then you can kind of see on both the middle and the rear mounts how they have that angled flange that also kind of steps out and forward toward the front of the vehicle if you're going from the roof out. Since we are currently working on the driver's side here, I'll take all the passenger side mounts and kind of just set them off to the side in their general locations. And then these can be our main focus going forward. Now the front mounts are really easiest to install once the main rack structure is up on the vehicle and located by the mid and rear mounts. So we'll start out with our mid mount here. They're actually going to bolt to the side rails using the vertical slotted holes in this outside flange. You can see that this kind of cutout or step, if you will, is down. And then we're using 1/4 button head bolts through the side rails with the nuts on the inside to secure those in place. And then you can move back and install the rear mount in the same fashion, again using those vertical slotted holes to the side rail and 1/4 hardware. With all of these mounts, I'll then recommend coming back with a 5/32 hex, pushing the mount itself all the way down and just lightly snugging them into place for now. This is just going to help to hold the rack and specifically the side rails up off of the painted roof surface and just let it rest on the mounts as we're getting it into place. You can kind of do the same thing with your front and rear fairings, pushing them all the way down and then just lightly snugging them into place, even just using one bolt for now. That'll let the edge trim on those be one of the first things that comes into contact with the roof up there as well. Once you have those mounts installed on both sides, you've got those fairings pushed all the way down, you can then grab a friend to help you lift this up onto the roof of the vehicle. You can kind of use your discretion with this step on how careful you want to be and how many friends you think you need. If it's just 2 of you, it's not a bad idea to throw a couple extra rags up there just to make sure that you're not going to damage your vehicle during this process. So as you walk this over the side of the vehicle, you're just looking for those mounts to nest down into those factory crossbar cutouts. Kind of take your time, just gently getting this set into place. And with the roof rack loosely in place, we can now kind of jump back up on our steps and install some hardware up here. Now all of the mid and rear mounts are going to install in the same fashion up here on the roof, so I'll just show you on this driver's side rear. The rearmost hole, which is also the only threaded hole into that factory bracket, is going to get a 8mm button head with a washer that you'll find in your bolt pack. So it's just a matter of lining this up kind of both side to side and front to rear and getting that started by hand. And then in this front hole location, we're going to provide you with a nut tab that's got a pre-installed 1/4 nut on the bottom side. That will need to be kind of fished down underneath here into that location where the factory nut was previously removed. And then from the top side, you'll install a 1/4 button head bolt with a washer. You may have to get in here and kind of pull up on the nut tab as you're getting the bolt into place. So things do get just a little bit tight during this process, but it is very much doable. Once you have that hardware loosely installed, you'll take your 5/32 hex and tighten this front bolt. And then you'll need a 5mm hex for that rear M8 button head. Then you can repeat that same process for the remaining 3 mounts. With those mid and rear mounts installed, that's going to locate this rack from front to rear, and you can then move on to the front mounts. Like we mentioned earlier, these are side specific, so just double check that you have the right one, narrower end toward the front. Again, this vertically slotted flange is going to go out here on the side, and then this is going to kind of nest down into the rain channel on the roof over here. Before that goes in, you're actually going to need to find the double-sided tape that we provide. You will have to trim this to length and then stick it to the bottom of the mount on this flange here. Just peeling one side of that adhesive backer for now. Before you stick that adhesive on, it's a good idea to clean this off. So I just have a little alcohol prep pad here. Rubbing alcohol on a clean rag would work just fine. And then you can locate kind of the general location that that's going to go in down here on the roof using the mounting holes on the side rail and do the same thing. Then, like we said, just peel the one side of that adhesive backer. Carefully line that up here and firmly press that into place. Once you've done that, you may want to do 1 or 2 just dry fits here to make sure that you're confident you can get that stuck down into place as well as lined up with the slots out here. You can even kind of work from the outside, lining the slots up first and then pressing that down in. Just take your time, make sure you're confident in that before you go to stick it down. Then you can just peel the adhesive backer off of that other side and get this pressed into place. Before you press that down firmly, the adhesive is kind of loosely holding it in right now. You can grab 2 more of those 1/4 button heads with flange lock nuts and get those installed outside in to just make sure you've got it located properly from front to rear. And then make sure to go back and press down firmly, securing that adhesive to the roof. You can repeat that same process to get your passenger side mount installed, and then we can work on adjusting side rail height. During this step, we'll essentially be using the mid and rear mount to set the overall appearance and height of these side rails. During this, you'll also want to have the front and rear fairings now loose, and then you can come in here, basically lower the front one all the way so you have maximum amount of vertical adjustment there, and then you can adjust this simply by lifting using those slotted holes in the mounts. Get it where you're happy with the appearance in relation to the roof or the ground if you're shooting for level there. And then go ahead and tighten both this mid and rear mount up with your 5/32 hex. So here on the front mounts, now with the mid and rears tight, you'll simply lift a little bit on the side rail here, using the pressure from those mounts to add preload to the front, and then tighten these in place. If for any reason you feel like you're having trouble getting enough pressure here, this whole assembly will kind of pivot just a little bit off of that mid mount, so you can go back to the rear and in a similar fashion, loosen it, lift, and tighten that back up to add a little more tension here on the front as well. Then you can simply repeat that process on the other side to set the passenger side rail height. And then if you haven't done so already, come back and reinstall the 3 crossbars we had removed for that hardware and mount access earlier on. Once you've done that, we can move on to adjusting the front and rear fairings. On these fairings, the adjustment is really fairly simple. You're using the slots in the fairing itself, along with the 3 bolts here, pressing forward on the fairing to make good contact all the way along here on this edge trim, and then tightening those in place. Now what we recommend doing is installing paint protection film between the edge trim and anywhere it contacts the painted surface out here. So the way you do that is obviously order up some of the paint protection film, and then we'll just use some masking tape. You will need to kind of push this down into what will be its final location and kind of lightly snug it into place. And then you can just start at one end just in front of your edge trim and work your way all the way across, marking out that location. Once you have that kind of guideline taped out all the way across the front, you can then remove the 2 bolts on each side. I've also made a mark out here so I kind of know my start and stop point, and then we'll just flip this fairing temporarily back up and out of the way. And then much like where we put that adhesive earlier, we're going to clean this all off. Rubbing alcohol works well for this as well because you want something that is not going to leave a residue here on the roof. After that, you can grab your film. I started by peeling back about 1 inch of the backer here, and then I'm just going to get that started right there next to my Sharpie mark. I'm just putting this down with a vinyl applicator card, so nothing too crazy here. And then it's just a matter of working your way across and following your line here on the roof. I will point out that I am installing the 1-inch film here, but this comes in multiple widths, so it's just at your discretion on what you want to order there, just giving you a little more surface coverage underneath that fairing. Once you've done that all the way across, you can simply peel that blue masking tape back out of the way, flip your fairing back into place and move on to the final adjustments here. Obviously, you'll want to have all your hardware fully reinstalled. So as for that, you'll just push this down tight to the roof and tighten all your hardware here. And then go over and do the same thing on the other side. Also kind of just making sure that these are somewhat even from side to side. You can then repeat that process on a somewhat smaller scale on that rear fairing anywhere that your edge trim back there contacts the paint. With things finished up on that rear fairing, your installation is complete. So if you guys have any questions at all about this installation or anything else we offer here at Victory 4x4, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always send us an email at info@victory4x4.com or give us a call at 269-459-8447.